Have you ever been told by the people you love most that your dreams are a waste of time, that you're throwing your life away on a foolish whim? That's exactly what happened to me when I decided to ditch a stable, respectable job to chase a career that everyone in my family called a pipe dream: stand-up comedy. My parents, my siblings, even my closest cousins, they all turned their backs on me, saying I was selfish, irresponsible, and destined to crash and burn, leaving me standing alone on a stage with nothing but a mic and a room full of silence. But last month, something happened that flipped everything upside down, a moment so surreal I still can't believe it, where I finally showed them I wasn't just some delusional kid chasing a fantasy. This isn't just about proving a point. It's about the gut-wrenching pain of being rejected by your own blood, the sleepless nights wondering if they were right, and the raw, messy fight to carve out a life that's truly mine. From the crushing lows of empty comedy clubs to a breakthrough I never saw coming, I'm spilling every detail of how I clawed my way up while carrying the weight of my family's disapproval. There's a twist in this story that made me rethink everything I thought I knew about why they pushed me away, and now I'm left wondering if I've won the battle but lost something even bigger. Stick with me through this long, emotional journey because I need to know what you'd do if you were me. How do you rebuild bridges with family when you've spent years proving you don't need them? My name's Jake, and I'm 32 years old, living in the bustling, artsy city of Austin, Texas, a place known for its live music, food trucks, and a vibe that screams, "Keep it weird." I've been here for about 6 years now, renting a cramped one-bedroom apartment just off South Congress Avenue, where the hum of live bands spills out of bars every night and the smell of barbecue wafts through the air on weekends. Austin's the kind of city where dreamers flock, hoping to make it big in music, film, or, in my case, comedy. I work odd jobs, freelance graphic design gigs mostly, to pay the bills, but my real passion, the thing that keeps me up at night, is stand-up. I've been grinding at open mics and small venues around town, from hole-in-the-wall spots like the Velveeta Room to bigger stages at Cap City Comedy Club, trying to make a name for myself while dodging the ever-looming fear of failure. I grew up a few hours away in a small, conservative town called Kerrville, nestled in the Texas Hill Country, where life revolves around church potlucks, high school football, and safe careers like accounting or teaching. My family, mom, dad, older brother Travis, and younger sister Emily, are still there, living in the same tight-knit community where deviating from the norm is practically a sin. I was the black sheep from the start, the kid who'd rather crack jokes in class than study for tests, and when I announced at 25 that I was quitting my steady job at a local hardware store chain's corporate office to move to Austin and pursue comedy, it was like I'd dropped a bomb on their world. The emotional conflict tearing at me isn't just about chasing a risky career. It's the deep, aching wound of my family's rejection, a betrayal that's left me feeling unmoored, like I'm floating through life without an anchor, even as I fight to prove I made the right choice. When I told them about my plans, I expected skepticism, maybe some tough love, but not the outright dismissal I got. My dad, a gruff mechanic who spent 40 years fixing cars in Kerrville, looked at me like I'd lost my mind, his face hardening as he told me I was throwing away a good life for some clown act. My mom, who's always been the peacemaker, cried quietly at the kitchen table, her hands folded over her worn Bible, saying she didn't understand why I'd risk everything for something so unstable. Travis, who followed Dad's footsteps into a trade job, called me selfish for not thinking about how my failure would embarrass the family, and Emily, who's studying to be a nurse, just stopped talking to me altogether, like I'd become a stranger overnight. Their words cut deeper than any heckler's insult ever could, leaving me with this gnawing mix of anger and loneliness that I carry to every gig. I've spent years wondering if I'm chasing comedy to prove them wrong or to prove something to myself, and every empty seat at a show, every bombed set, feels like their voices echoing in my head, telling me I should have stayed in Kerrville, safe and miserable. It's not just about making it big. It's about whether I can live with the cost of losing the only people who've ever truly known me. Memories of my life before Austin, before this rift, haunt me on quiet nights when I'm alone in my apartment, the distant sound of 6th Street's nightlife buzzing outside my window while I stare at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I think back to growing up in Kerrville, to lazy summers tubing down the Guadalupe River with Travis and Emily, the water cold against my skin as we laughed about nothing, the sun glinting off the limestone cliffs. I remember Sunday dinners at my parents' house on Shriner Street, the smell of Mom's chicken fried steak filling the small dining room, Dad grumbling about work while we all pretended to listen, a warmth in those moments I didn't appreciate until it was gone. I can still picture the high school talent show when I was 16, sneaking a comedy bit into my act, making the crowd laugh for the first time, my family in the audience clapping, back when they still saw my humor as a quirk, not a betrayal. Now, when I drive through Austin's hilly streets or grab a taco from a food truck on Rainy Street, I ache for that sense of belonging I left behind, wondering if I traded family for a dream that might never pan out. Kerrville, with its quaint downtown and the annual folk festival where I used to sneak beers with friends, feels like a different lifetime, a place I can't go back to without feeling like I've failed, or like I've won at too high a price. The struggle to make it in comedy while carrying my family's disapproval has been a slow, grinding battle, one that's tested every ounce of my resolve as I've navigated Austin's chaotic creative scene over the past 6 years. My first few years here were brutal. Open mics where I'd get 3 minutes to perform for a crowd of 5 drunks who didn't care. Bombing so hard, I'd leave the stage shaking, questioning why I ever thought I could do this. I'd sit in my beat-up Honda after shows, parked under the flickering streetlights of East Austin, scribbling new material in a notebook while fighting the urge to call Mom just to hear a familiar voice, even if it came with judgment. I worked soul-crushing side gigs, waiting tables, delivering food, just to afford rent, coming home at 2 a.m. smelling like grease, only to drag myself to another open mic the next night. Winters in Austin, though milder than most places, still felt cold and lonely, especially around the holidays when I'd see families strolling through Zilker Park for the Trail of Lights, and I'd wonder if my parents even missed me at their Christmas table. I started getting small wins, booked for a weekend slot at a local club, a viral clip of one of my sets on social media, but every step forward came with the shadow of my family's silence, their absence louder than any applause. I'd walk along Lady Bird Lake on off days, the water shimmering under the Texas sun, trying to convince myself I didn't need their approval, but the ache never really left. The breaking point came about a month ago, on a humid Friday night in late August, when I hit a wall I didn't think I could climb over, a moment that crystallized every fear and frustration I'd been carrying. I'd been booked for a big showcase at Cap City Comedy Club, one of Austin's premier spots, a chance to perform in front of industry scouts who could actually get me somewhere. I'd spent weeks perfecting my set, pacing my tiny apartment, practicing in front of a cracked mirror until I had every punchline down cold. But the night of the show, as I stood backstage, hearing the crowd's muffled laughter through the curtain, my phone buzzed with a text from Travis, the first contact from my family in over a year. It wasn't encouragement or even a neutral good luck. It was a curt message saying Dad had been in a minor car accident, nothing serious, but they thought I should know, almost like an afterthought. No mention of the show, no acknowledgement of my life here, just a cold reminder of how far I'd drifted. I felt this surge of guilt and anger, my hands trembling as I tucked the phone away, wondering why they couldn't just be proud of me for once. Why even bad news felt like a jab. I went on stage anyway, delivered my set with a fake smile, and got decent laughs, but inside I was crumbling, feeling like no matter how far I climbed, I'd never outrun their disappointment. That night, driving home along I-35, the city lights blurring through my windshield, I almost decided to quit, to pack up and go back to Kerrville, tail between my legs, just to feel like I belonged somewhere again. The unexpected twist came a week later, and it turned my world upside down, leaving me reeling with a mix of vindication and confusion as I sat in a quiet coffee shop on South Lamar, the smell of espresso grounding me while my mind spun. I got an email from a talent agent who'd been at the Cap City showcase, saying they'd loved my set and wanted to book me for a national comedy tour opening for a well-known comic, a legitimate, life-changing break. Not only that, but the viral clip from that night had racked up over 1 million views, and suddenly my inbox was flooded with messages from bookers and fans. I'd done it. I'd proved I could make it, that my dream wasn't just some foolish gamble. But the real shock came when I got a call from Emily, her voice shaky over the line, saying she'd seen the clip online, that the whole family had watched it, and that Mom had cried, not out of disappointment, but because she realized how much I'd achieved without them. Emily admitted they'd been hard on me not just because they thought I'd fail, but because they were scared I'd leave them behind for good, that my moving to Austin and chasing this life meant I didn't need them anymore. Hearing that, I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My anger at their rejection suddenly felt misplaced, like I'd misunderstood their coldness as disdain when it was really fear. But that didn't erase the years of silence, the pain of being shunned, the nights I'd cried alone in my apartment wondering if I'd ever hear from them again. I sat there, staring out the coffee shop window at the eclectic Austin crowd passing by, feeling this messy tangle of triumph and hurt, unsure if this breakthrough meant I'd won or if it just highlighted how much I'd lost. In the weeks that followed, I tried to process this new reality, riding the high of my career taking off while grappling with the unresolved pain of my family's distance. as Austin's late summer heat gave way to the first hints of fall. The tour offer was real. I signed the contract, started prepping material for bigger crowds, even moved into a slightly nicer apartment near Barton Springs, a step up from my old dump. I'd walk along the pool's edge on quiet mornings, the water sparkling under the cypress trees, feeling like I was finally living the life I'd dreamed of, but the victory felt hollow without anyone to share it with. Emily's call opened a crack in the wall between me and my family, but no one else reached out. Not Mom, not Dad, not Travis, and I wasn't sure if I should be the one to make the next move. I threw myself into work, doing interviews for local podcasts, performing at packed venues downtown, the roar of laughter a temporary balm for the ache in my chest. I drive past the Texas state capitol on my way to gigs, its dome glowing at night, and wonder if success was worth it if it came with this loneliness. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since my early days in Austin, scribbling my thoughts in a diner on Guadalupe Street over late-night coffee, trying to sort out if I owed my family forgiveness or if they owed me an apology. Austin's vibrant energy, the street art, the festivals, the constant hum of creativity, felt like both a refuge and a reminder of how far I'd come, and how far I still was from feeling whole. Reflecting on my past with my family became an almost daily ritual as I tried to make sense of where we stood now, especially on long drives through the Texas Hill Country when I'd head out of town for smaller gigs. I'd think about the time Dad took me fishing at Ingram Dam when I was 10, his rare smile as I reeled in my first bass, a moment of quiet pride I hadn't seen from him since. I remembered Mom's sewing costumes for my school plays. Even if she didn't get my humor, her hands steady as she stitched, a kind of love I took for granted. I'd recall late-night talks with Travis in our shared bedroom, dreaming about getting out of Kerrville, only for him to settle there while I ran, and I wondered if he resented me for it. I'd pass signs for Kerrville on I-10, my stomach twisting at the thought of driving those extra hours just to show up at their door, unannounced, to see if they'd even let me in. I thought about the last family reunion before I moved, at a park along the river, everyone laughing over barbecue while I felt like an outsider even then, already planning my escape. Sitting in my car after shows, parked under the vast Texas sky, I'd wrestle with whether family meant unconditional support or if I had the right to demand they meet me halfway, especially now that I'd proven I wasn't a failure. As fall crept into Austin, with cooler evenings and the buzz of the South by Southwest festival planning in the air, I built a fragile new routine, though the unresolved rift with my family lingered like the faint smell of rain before a storm. My career was soaring, gigs every weekend, a growing social media following, even talks of a comedy special, but I'd come home to an empty apartment, the silence louder than ever. I started hanging out more with other comics, grabbing beers at spots like the White Horse, their camaraderie a poor substitute for the family I missed. I'd hike the trails at McKinney Falls State Park on off days, the sound of rushing water over limestone a backdrop to my churning thoughts, wondering if I'd ever feel at peace with how things turned out. I bought a cheap guitar, something I'd always wanted to learn, and strummed aimlessly on my balcony overlooking the city, trying to fill the quiet with something other than regret. I'd scroll through old photos on my phone, me and Emily at a county fair, Mom's proud smile at my high school graduation, and feel this pull to call them, to invite them to a show, but fear of rejection stopped me every time. Austin's quirks, the bat colony under Congress Avenue Bridge, the colorful murals on every corner, kept me grounded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living half a life, one foot in my dream and the other stuck in a past I couldn't reclaim. Now, as I sit here in my new apartment, the city lights of Austin twinkling outside my window, the faint strum of a busker's guitar drifting up from the street below, I'm still wrestling with what to do next. I proved I was right. Comedy wasn't a waste, and I've built something real, something I'm proud of, a life that's mine even if it's messy. But knowing why my family pushed me away, knowing it wasn't just about doubting me, but about fearing they'd lose me, has me questioning if I've been too stubborn, if I should have reached out sooner to bridge this gap. I hate the thought of them watching my success from afar, maybe hurting because they think I don't want them in my life, but I can't forget the years of silence, the way their rejection cut me to the bone when I needed them most. I've got a show in San Antonio next month, just a couple hours from Kerrville, and I keep wondering if I should invite them, if seeing me on stage might finally make them understand, or if it'll just reopen old wounds. My phone's right here on the coffee table, their number's a tap away, but I don't know if I'm ready to hear their voices, to risk being hurt again, or to admit I've missed them more than I can say. So, I'm turning to you guys, because I'm at a crossroads and I could really use some perspective. If you were in my shoes, would you reach out to your family, invite them to a show, try to rebuild that connection even if it means risking rejection all over again? Or would you keep your distance, Focus on the life you've built and let them come to you if they're ready. How do you balance the need for family with the need to protect yourself from past pain? I want to believe there's a way to have both, my career and my roots, but I'm not sure how to get there without losing a piece of myself. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I'm honestly torn, and I'd love to know what you'd do if you were standing where I am right now, wondering if proving you're right is worth it if it means standing alone.